every opportunity. Okay.
Yep. Okay, welcome everybody to tonight's planning meeting. I understand that we've got some guests that would like to speak in a public session. You've got 15 minutes and some of our councillors would like to ask questions. So if you're happy, we'll do some Q&As, time permitting, that is, because it's got to be within the 15 minutes. So who would like to kick it off? Any of our guests wanted to speak in a public session? No?
Yeah, Thea's coming.
Emily, you're on mute.
Hi.
Hello.
Everybody. Hello. I haven't met any of you yet, but I joined Barrett, David Wilson, North Thames a year ago, and I'm head of their planning team. One of the items before you this evening is relates to the southern land parcel of our development at Tindrick Road. You may remember that in July this year, an application relating to the northern land parcel was granted, and that increased the number of units by 7 in that northern section. The application before you today relates to the southern parcel, and it proposes to increase the number of units by 9, originally 10, but via discussions with the landscape officer and the case officer, we've made some changes, and the number is now down to 9 additional units, which will bring the total delivered at Tindrick to 398. Which is still within the parameters set by the outline planning consent. I wrote a letter to everybody which Theo issued on our behalf, just setting out what's proposed in this application before you today, how it relates to the sort of initial reserve masses and how it fits within the parameters of the outline. Confirming that we've increased the level of affordable housing so that it remains at 35% across the now increased figure of 398. And also to just reassure you that through discussions with the case officer and the landscape officer, the amendments to the layout that we've made to fit these extra units in are still firmly within the sort of the parameters of the approved design code. And that was all I had to say. And if anybody had any questions, then I would be happy to answer them. But it is quite a straightforward uplift application.
Excellent. Theo, did you want to say anything at all?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, take questions then. So, Councillor Stutchbury.
Well, firstly, thank you for returning after furlough and coming back to see us. It seems a long time since you've been to see us with this application. That withstanding, you will know that the outlying questions with this application is we need to be, irrespective of what decisions taken tonight, we need to be pushing on with the committed sum, the negotiations around the lands near it, because I know you'd already premised in communications to people that we were in those discussions. So I think we need to close those windows of discussion. We need to formulate those agreements and push on with that, because obviously I'm very conscious that we want to avoid, where possible and if possible, a situation what happened in the similar development and your cousin developers on the Layshill development. If we can avoid some of that for our community, that would be a good thing. I hope that you're going to put all your energies into that once you've got these matters dealt with through planning. I know there's a question to come from another councillor to do with another matter to do with it, but if you could just answer that briefly.
Yes, so I think what you're alluding to there is the sort of general public open space management and maintenance going forward. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
We've been in discussions. Then
yeah.
we had a break. Then we had no communication
Okay.
from you for a long time. Then we had COVID, and now you're all back.
Yeah.
I'm conscious that we
okay.
need to close that window.
Robin, let Emily answer the question.
So I'll try and be really brief because I don't want to take up too much time. So obviously, that we are required under the 106 agreement to deliver a series of public open spaces, and the 106 agreement allows for that either to be managed in the long term by a management body or for it to be transferred to the council or a council nominee. Obviously, when it gets to that stage, and I'm more than happy to get in touch with Liam and the site team and restart these discussions if there's been a delay, we would be more than happy to enter into discussions with yourself or whichever nominee that the council think is appropriate on getting this public open space transferred across to you or whoever that nominee may be. I will certainly pick this up with the site team and make sure that those discussions are restarted again.
Brilliant. That's really good news. Thank you.
I just want to apologise if my children are screaming, and if they come running in, I'm sorry. Okay.
Not a problem. Right, Anthony.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just bring forward the subject of the St Rumbold's Well itself, the ancient monument, and certainly on social media and in conversations with people around the town, they're concerned at the poor state of it at the moment, and I've tried to reassure them that things will be happening, but it would be very useful if our guests this evening could give us some idea of the timescales and perhaps the extent of the refurbishment and what they're actually planning finally to do with that. And just if I may, just to give you the second one, because it's highly related, that there's a fence along the edge of the field, and as I think Theo would remember, we talked about putting some sort of better gate in there, because at the moment it's what we would call a kissing gate, so it's great for pedestrians, and we wanted it so that we could get push bikes through, so the children could get on the scenic walk and then get to school quite safely off the roads. And I saw that as part of the same process. So any information, timescales would be very helpful.
I'm going to have to hold my hands up and say that this is something that I'm going to have to go back to my site team and get some information for you. I don't want to say anything now without liaising with Liam and the team, but I will certainly via Theo provide an update on both of those items for you over the next 24 hours, if that's okay.
That's super. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question? Right, Councillor Harvey and then Councillor Try.
It's just really a comment rather than a question. But one of the challenges for our planning officer, indeed for us as councillors too, is when changes are made to big plans like this, it would really help if the changes were identified, because what we heard about was that our planning officer, who is in rude good health, but nonetheless had to spend hours poring over the plans, the new one and the old one, in order to try and discover where the changes actually were.
Okay.
So could you please assure us that in the future, and on lots of other plans that you're going to be looking after in your career, please provide the list of changes to people like us, so that we know what actually has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. I do take that point on board, and I inherited Tintrick in these applications from my predecessor. So yes, point taken, and I'm very grateful to your planning officer for taking the time to set them out for you all. If I'm ever in front of you again with a similar application, I'll make sure that I've listed it all out for you beforehand.
Thank
But
you
do
very
it for
much.
others too.
And for others, yes, I do take your point. It can get very confusing when you've got revisions to already complex schemes.
Right, Councillor Try.
Thank you very much. Emily, it's Martin Try here. Why did you feel it was important to amend these plans, which were very large and detailed in the first place, just to have, as our agenda says, another 10 more, although I think you said 9. Realise that the outline plans allowed you up to 400, but that was a proposal to get maximum of 400. You didn't have to get there. So what's the importance of having these extra 9 out of all the 380 whatever you've got there already that you couldn't have planned for it at the beginning?
I unfortunately, I wasn't involved in the original reserve matters, so those discussions I wasn't a party to. What I can say is that as one of our aims as a business is to try and make the best and most efficient use of land that is released from Greenbelt or other areas for development. And sometimes that involves getting a reserve matters consent or a detailed consent even for a certain number, starting the detailed design process and actually realizing that through some tweaks here and there, a few more units could be included, which would help with the delivery of homes. And as always, more units means more affordable housing as well. So it's just about making the most efficient use of development sites to get the best outcome in terms of homes delivered.
Yeah, okay, thank you for the answer. You've got a big team in your design and company, and in the town councils we've got very few people. I just thought you may have got it right, closer to first time round, rather than dragging us all through this, and has recently been saying with Councillor John Harvey, trying to find what the differences are, which sometimes in other developments have been interesting, to say the least. But thank you for your answer.
That's okay.
Okay, right, we've got 2 minutes left of public session, so Robin wanted to come in again.
Yeah, thank you. Just you've moved on to this development, you're not up to brief on it. Please can you go away and look at the full section 106 for the development? One of the big gains from this development for the community and the development was the cycleway along the railway walk. Can you go and look at that, see what time frame that kicks in, so that comes in, because children obviously cycling from this development or walking to school is going to be so much better than going around in the car. So it's key that that's brought on at the appropriate stage and not delayed. That goes across the ownership of Buckinghamshire Council's scenic walk and the railway walk, and a conversation at a later stage on that would be useful on your belief on when you're going to deliver that, because it's an important part of the site.
Absolutely.
And it was something I was involved in getting into the section 106 with fellow councillors, so I'm quite keen to see it delivered.
Okay. I will, as I said, I will get back to you on that. I will have to go away and review the 106 and also talk to the site team about where we are in terms of delivery.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, Councillor Hirons, you've got 1 minute.
I was walking along the railway walk last week. There is an awful lot of water coming off the site onto that walk. And if over at least 100 meters, 200 meters, the water's coming from that onto the railway walk. And I just wonder whether you're going to do something about this, because at the moment you can't really make a decent walk out of it because for the sound of your splashing feet all the time. And it certainly wouldn't be any good for going to school at the moment. And it's really all connected with this St Rumbold's well. This is the water that used to go in the well, and now because there isn't a well or anything there, It just comes straight out onto the path.
Okay, again, I'll have to take that up with the site team. I will certainly take that up.
Okay. Well, thank you both, Theo and Emily, for coming along tonight. And yeah, don't be strangers. You can come in anytime. Good. Okay, we'll move on. Is there any apologies? No. No. Any declarations? Nope. Minutes. We've got two sets, 12th of October and the 2nd of November. To receive and approve them. Agreed? Thumbs up? Yep, cool. Thank you. Okay, item 4, we've got our neighbourhood plan and a Vale Bellsbury plan. A report from the town plan officer. So Sheena, you're up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're currently working on identifying a provider, or at least a platform, for the survey that we're hoping to do, that we've been discussing. So that's sort of the major focus at the moment in relation to the neighbourhood development plan. So that's sort of currently in hand, and Paul and I are having a meeting tomorrow to catch up on that. And we also have the design guide group meeting tomorrow afternoon as well, to hopefully kickstart that process. And I'd like to record my thanks to Roger Newell for his input in that from the Buckingham Society as well. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting afternoon. In terms of VALP, it's hanging on in there. The latest from the inspector from the 29th of October is pretty much he's still considering whether he will have more hearing sessions on it. He's waiting for a consultation period to close with Buckinghamshire Council before he decides that. He's also made a determination. There was obviously a challenge as to whether or not the 5-year supply should be going into VALP as an additional modification, or whether in fact it should be a main modification. He has said that it's perfectly okay to go in as an additional modification because it's being dealt with under the National Planning Policy Framework of 2012 rather than the more updated one, and therefore it does not make the plan unsound. Obviously somebody, I think, has had a potential challenge there. He's put that one to bed. So yes, I can imagine he's still working on it, and there's no indication that it's anything other than just very, very, very slowly progressing in the background. Do you want me to cover the knowledge arc, the next item on the agenda, or does anyone want to ask me anything about the plan first and then on to that one?
Yeah, we've got some hands up, so we'll stay on 4.1 for now. So Robin and then John.
Firstly, thank you as ever, Sheena, for the work that you're doing on this and your optimism about the plan passing commission. They were obviously very optimistic on the 170 houses the other day, as it was premised greatly in that application, which we'll discuss later. Now, on this, your meeting tomorrow, can we just make sure that we've sent that additional? I can't note the meeting date of that. If I see lots of meetings, I haven't got that one down for tomorrow afternoon. Can we please send that out again today to make sure that people have got that at the top of their meetings agenda, because it could be that I can attend. The other matter with this plan, you said you're going to meet to dovetail some of the stuff around it. Are we not still working in the dark, because until the Vale plan is delivered. I believe our plan has still got planning weight. And although it seems we're coming to a situation where that may get tested immensely with applications which we know are pending.
Sorry, on the latter point, in the sense of on the local plan, in the absence of VALP, obviously the neighbourhood development plan is still the current most up-to-date document. I think it is a debatable point if it's being based on the evidence that has been brought forward for VALP. There may be some weight given to that. As to the actual policies within VALP, I think that's still a debatable point as to whether or not it does carry weight, particularly if it's one of the ones in the main modifications, which obviously the inspector hasn't given any indication on at the moment. So in terms of that, yes, I think I see no reason why the neighbourhood plan at the moment is not still considered to be robust and, well, it's certainly the most up-to-date document. And when we're talking about 2004 for the other parts of the local plan, I think we're okay at the moment, would be my view.
It's just that I worry about a commonality of ignoring local plans. Having sat through a meeting the other day where another parish's local plan was ignored completely, or wasn't given any weight, that worried me greatly. So I
had that issue with ours. Yeah,
I'll watch with interest.
I mean, our difficulty is always going to be what I'm talking about. It tends to be outside in terms of you know, a planning inspector. Our difficulty does seem to be on occasions getting the internal, if you like, system, the council, to accept that the neighbourhood development plan carries considerable weight. And that's unfortunately, I suspect, something that we just have to keep plugging with the planning officers. Earlier this year, there were some hopeful signs, I would have said, that there was quite a lot of inclusion of our policies were relevant in the decisions. But obviously, this is something we may have to watch with the ones that you're flagging up at the moment coming forward.
Thank you, Sheena. It just means we're going to have to stiffen up our resolve when we draft the new plan.
Yeah. All right, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether you think, Sheena, whether you think that the application to build 170 houses in Maids Morton, had that been rejected, would that have undermined the VALP in a significant way? And do you think that might have accounted for the verve, shall we say, on behalf of the council's officers to endeavour to persuade the councillors present to approve the application?
I obviously I'd be somewhat second guessing on that. I don't think it would have made a significant difference. I mean, the obvious thing is that they've got the large development at Shenley Park, which is the main modification, and to a certain extent, that's always potentially capable of absorbing any loss that they might have made on the 170 houses. So whilst that's still up as a main modification, I don't think that I wouldn't have thought that would have been the reason behind it. The other thing that I think has got to be borne in mind with that particular development is that even without it being included in VALP, there is, I think, a strong possibility that would be seen as by the planning inspectorate as a sustainable development. Our experience with the Maids Morton phase 3 indicated quite clearly that the planning inspectorate thought that was sustainable. We've already got coalescence to a certain extent with Maids Morton, whether we agree with that or not, that seems to be a planning fact. I'm not entirely certain that if that had been put forward as a standalone development, even not within the ambit of the potentially forthcoming VALP, that it wouldn't have been accepted as a sustainable development. And even if Buckinghamshire Council had rejected it, I think possibility on a planning appeal, they could have been overturned on that decision. But so I don't necessarily think it hinges on VALP.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so 4.2, Sheena, did you want to speak on this?
Just to say that I was somewhat disappointed, shall we say, about particularly maybe the tone in which this was done. And it would be useful if anyone does have any particular knowledge as to why Buckinghamshire Council has pulled out of this. My reasons, really looking at it, is that obviously it's a decision that seems to be more orientated towards the south, who maybe don't see the benefit of the knowledge arc, whereas the north of the Vale certainly would have seen potentially some benefits from that. Councillors will remember that the National Infrastructure Commission's report had sort of dangled the carrot of infrastructure, and very much well-designed development was what they were aiming for. And I just sort of worry that we're going to have the East-West Rail, we're going to have the expressway potentially, and we're going to have that, but we may not be in the pool, so to speak, for any further beneficial infrastructure, or to be able to deflect from perhaps development that we don't think is particularly suitable. My fear is that this will move up to a regional, if not central, development board to push this through, particularly in light of Brexit and perhaps the economic recovery, and that we might well end up being excluded from not being part of that, outside rather than inside. Okay.
Thank you very much. Right, so I saw Councillor Cole's hand first, then Councillor Stutchbury, and then Councillor White is shaking his head no. So I'm hoping when Robin comes in, he can probably explain what Warren was going to say. So Councillor Cole, you first.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, everything that Sheena said is what I was going to talk about. I think it's an extremely short-sighted and perverse decision by Buckinghamshire Council. The Oxford-Cambridge Arc is more than just an arc of, you know, land, agricultural land, urban land, etc. It's an initiative that was launched in 2003 by the 3 regional development agencies, EEDA, EMDA and CEDA. Not only that, it's Motorsport Valley as well. It goes the whole way from Wantage through Oxford, Enston, Banbury, Bicester, Buckingham, Brackley, Silverstone, Milton Keynes, Cranfield, Millbrook, all the way to Cambridge. Those are all towns and areas that have got huge motorsport technology investment. 300 companies, including 6 of the 10 Formula 1 teams. Buckingham has about 20 motorsport companies working here. Very important for us. Silverstone, of course, is one of the Vale of Aylesbury's 2 employment hubs. So how Buckinghamshire Council can ignore one of its own employment hubs, which is Britain's biggest Grand Prix circuit, in fact, one of the world's biggest Grand Prix circuits. What this is going to do if they pull out of this, despite the fact the Northwest Railway, East-West Railway is being built at the moment, whether or not we get the East-West Expressway, the gross added value of this corridor in 2011 was £90 million. If we get East-West Railway, this is going to increase to 163 billion. Sorry, I should have said 90 billion to start with. That'll increase to 163 billion, and it means that we're not going to get any of the economic fallout from this, but we're going to get all the problems, aren't we? We're going to get the roads, possible houses, but without the benefits of it all. So how they can call it false geography is completely beyond me. It's short-sighted. As I say, it's very perverse, and I say we should oppose this as the main town in North Bucks.
Okay, Councillor Stutchbury, you're up.
Yeah, let's just go back through it's got a history. Originally, the 2 historic authorities, Buckinghamshire and Aylesbury Vale at the time, did not choose to sign the confidential agreement to have sight of the route. That was last year, or maybe 12, 18 months ago now. So that was sort of showed you the route of travel. What I understand, this is not a full, hasn't gone to council. This is an executive decision to pull out of this agreement. To the best of my knowledge, I don't recall voting on this at council, at full council on the Buckinghamshire Council. So it's an executive decision. The other factors with it, which are realities, which may have been behind the decision, is originally there was 5 councils in Buckinghamshire in a board, which all had a say in it. The reality is that, of course, now there's 1 council which has a say in it, being Buckinghamshire Council. So when it comes to a decision, the decisions I understand are taken on a majority basis. So the majority decision would be taken over and above by the outside organisations on where growth, infrastructure and whatever was going to be taken. That aside, it would seem strange from a North Bucks point of view to not have the Buckinghamshire Council in there predicting growth against known areas in Buckinghamshire, especially North Buckinghamshire, where we believe, because we don't know, because we haven't ever seen the route, we don't know where it's going to go. Although I believe Milton Keynes Council and Oxfordshire County Council both signed that confidential agreement, so they know where it's going to go. We don't know. So as we've already seen, the white paper predicts growth into known areas, and theoretically it could come to Buckinghamshire, North Buckinghamshire. We also know that the previous Secretary of State wanted to build 1 million houses across that same arc. So I cannot understand, and I don't want to decry the decision, because I'm sure when they took that decision there must have been some penultimate reason why they took it. But from a North Bucks point of view, not having a say on the route of the expressway stroke, the development that follows it, and not being in there, whether it was the fact that we could be outvoted by the people on the outside anyway, whether that meant why we pulled out. But even so, we should really have somebody in there representing us. The other thing about it, of course, is we don't know any of the predictions of this, and we will know even less going forward, because we won't have anyone representing us in those meetings on the growth arc. Now, taking on board all what was said by Mark about the economic vistas of this, Silverstone stroke, along the A4, the Bicester Road, the airbase along the Bicester Road, whatever, it is key. We need to establish, before we make vacuous accusations on why they dropped, we need to establish what the legal reasons for withdrawing were, and what the benefits were against what the financial risk to Buckinghamshire was. And I'm unclear that there's any benefits in not being in the room against the risks of it not being outside the room. But as I say, it was an executive decision. That decision hasn't been gone to council, unless it appears on the council agenda, which is going to be published this coming week. It will be an executive decision, which is completely different than Buckinghamshire councillors voting on it. But that might be an interesting discussion. And it's probably a north-south divide thing, where we have a particularly view of things in the north based upon our prejudice, based upon our knowledge, and based on everything else. But as I said at the beginning, we didn't sign that confidential agreement, so it probably signalled the route of travel. But we should really establish what the reasons were behind it, and we should then comment on those reasons, because otherwise our criticisms is a little open, isn't it?
Okay, I could see Warren shaking his head again. If members agree, we can suspend standing orders to let Warren.
Well, we've still got councillors wanting to speak, so I'm
chairing the meeting, Councillor Stutchbury. Thank you. I can see hands. Okay, are we happy to suspend standing orders for a minute to let Warren come in and speak?
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Warren.
Thank you. Quite interested to hear the conversations, and I'm afraid there's an awful lot of second guessing going on. Probably not helped that the agenda's not quite right. The knowledge arc is a very separate item, as is the technology cluster, as is Motorsport Valley, as is the economic heartland. All cross-border organisations that continue the important work that Councillor Cole was suggesting had all stopped all of a sudden. That isn't the case. Completely false premise. They all continue very important work, making sure that all the objectives of both the national and local industrial strategy can be delivered. We had an excellent announcement in the spending review last week, which confirmed East West Railway will be progressing to the next stage. So that's brilliant for the Bicester to Milton Keynes and Bletchley stage. So that's really good news. Mm. And also I was quite heartened to see absolutely no announcement on the expressway, which I take as positive news, as the government is in a very spendthrift mode. So I'm taking heart of that decision too. So the only issue that, the only cross-border organisation that the Buckinghamshire Council has withdrawn from is the ARC, the Oxford to Cambridge ARC, none of the other ones. And if you follow the rather long-winded discussions of that organisation over the last 12 months, you'll find they've delivered nothing. They've done nothing of any use for Buckinghamshire, and particularly not for Buckingham. They don't offer any additional value to what we can do locally. You should be aware that we do have a Buckinghamshire Growth Board, which is active and is a very, very closely working group of Buckinghamshire councillors, the Local Enterprise Partnership, Bucks Business First, and we also have various government organisations as part of that, which will be shaping the growth and the future of Buckinghamshire, focusing on what we want and what we need, not having to count out what Luton wants, what Kettering wants, what Cambridgeshire wants, what Peterborough wants, but what Buckinghamshire wants. And any suggestion that there's a north-south divide in Buckinghamshire, we'll just need to review who was the representative on the growth arc prior to unification of the council, and he was actually promoting all sorts of things for North Bucks. That is now no longer the case. So I wouldn't be too. I just think you need, as a town council, you just need to be very careful of second guessing what is and isn't in the growth arc. I would recommend you all have a look at the Economic Heartland website to see what work that is doing on cross-border transport issues, and also just have a look at the other arc and see what it hasn't done over the last 12 months. And I wouldn't be so quick to suggest it's delivering as many things as has been suggested here tonight.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
And also just to bear in mind the government's announcement, or the government's intention of the growth arc was veering to a housing delivery arc, and actually the whole economic development side of it was falling away, which is why it's so critical that we have the industrial strategy for Buckinghamshire flying the flag for our economy and our requirements.
Mm. All right, thank you ever so much for that, Warren. Councillor Harvey?
Reinstate standing orders.
Oh yeah, sorry, we reinstate standing orders. Thank you very much, Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously I listened with keen attention to what Councillor White has just been talking about, and obviously he knows a lot more of the inside track on this than we do. We simply have to read the newspapers to hear about that the ARC is a plan to amalgamate Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire, Northamptonshire, Bedfordshire and Cambridgeshire to form a strategic belt, building on the strengths of the individual parts of the ARC, especially in science, technology and high value manufacturing. Now, I clearly understand that it's not possible to be involved in everything, but having been at one of the meetings of the ARC some months ago when I was mayor, at the invitation of the then Vice Chancellor and so on, and sitting in a room listening to various contributions, it sounded to me like a very vibrant, interesting group of local authorities to be working alongside to think about just what we need to be doing to ensure that whatever developments there are in this area. And there is a very strong geographical link. I'm sorry, I disagree with what Councillor White has said. The link between Oxford and Cambridge is well known. Heck, there's even a railway currently being built to link the two back up together again. And we often talk about Oxbridge and so forth. And indeed, the CCG in Milton Keynes is joining with the CCGs in Bedfordshire and Luton. There are lots and lots of reasons. We're part of, obviously, various other organisations that bridge these gaps, including, say, Thames Valley Police and so on. So I think to pull out, to my mind, is still the equivalent of a child of 4 putting their hands over their eyes and declaring themselves in hide and seek, and because they can't see anybody else, nobody can see them. I mean, that seems to be the logic of what the Buckinghamshire Council have done. I would say that rather than we criticise Buckinghamshire Council, who are not known for their ability to listen to small town councils like us, that we actually write to the ARC and say, well, if Buckinghamshire don't want to take part, we're happy to play our role and coordinate what I think ought to be called the Buckingham Bow, rather than the Oxford-Cambridge ARC, I have to say, and that we play our role wherever we can, and perhaps get a seat around the table, so at least we can find out what's going on, and at least we can maybe influence what's happening, given that Buckinghamshire Council appear to have taken their ball home and done basically a Brexit on the whole thing. They think that somehow, by isolating themselves from this ARC, that there's going to be no implications, which to my mind shows an extraordinary lack of understanding of just how authoritarian and autocratic central government can be.
Thank you very much, John. Right, I'll take Councillor Cole and then Councillor Stutchbury.
Yeah, if Councillor Harvey's making proposal, I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Stutchbury.
I think what we need to do is approach this calmly. What we need to do is, before we make rash decisions about going off and doing it, we need to get an authoritative statement about the rationale behind the decision, because there was correspondence about this which was an internal council conversation, wasn't one that was spread out to the villages. I didn't quite understand the logic behind the decision, but I think we should, before we rush off to do anything, I think we need to write and ask for the validate of the reason behind the decision. I suggested at the beginning there was a political difference in the way that it would work going forward with 5 authorities against 1. I think we need to get all that, and we also need to, some of the information that Councillor White provided to us, we need to see that in the round, and we need to look at that, and then we need to bring it back and make our decision based on all the information, because it could be my prejudice are remaining the same when we get to do that. But I don't feel at the situation now where we should, and even if we would be welcome at the thing, because we are not an upper tier authority, whether we would be welcome in the meeting anyway, because we can't represent Buckinghamshire, because we can't. So I think we do need to do all our investigation, and then if that's failed, and the argument then is, as we suspect, it's the wrong decision, then we act. Because if we act now, we need to remember that Buckinghamshire Authority in itself is a new authority, and Buckinghamshire County Council was an old authority, and if there ever is an election, it'll be an elected new authority with a different, may have a different view again. So I think we need to get all this information collated together. We need to take what Councillor White said, put it against what we've discussed, ask some questions, and then bring it back and make a decision at that point. Because I think if we're going to make a decision to be tardy, we need to make it based on all the information. I don't think
I
I've
agree.
got all the information here together today. And if I'm going to have an argument, I want all the information to have that argument. I don't want to just have an argument.
Well, we could always ask Paul to bring a report back to our next planning meeting to do some investigating and see what our options are, perhaps. What do members think of that?
Chair, there is a proposal on the table which has been seconded. And can I just respond as well to what Councillor Stutchbury just said? I see no reason why we can't twin track this. I see no reason why we can't simply write to the ARC and say, we're happy to find out a little bit more. Please keep us in the loop so we can maybe feed the information on where it might need to be here. But if we just leave it out of the frame, months will go by and we could lose some of the narrative that we might need to be on top of. So I don't see why we shouldn't do exactly what Robin's suggesting and write and find out more information, but at the same time write to the ARC as I proposed a few minutes ago, and say, well, we could help out a little bit too. We are only a town council, but we might have some insights that could be useful to you and vice versa. I see no reason the two are not incompatible. We're not making some huge policy decision here. We're simply opening up a dialogue with an organisation that extends well beyond our shores, but is one that could have a big impact upon the people of Buckingham eventually, and of course, on the overall area.
Okay, I'll, no, Robin, hold on.
Put this to
Robin,
the vote, Chair. Please can we put this to the vote?
yeah, if you guys would allow me to chair for a minute, I was going to ask Paul for his opinion and then go to the vote. So if we can do that, please. Paul, what's your thoughts on writing to the ARC?
Obviously, we can do that. We could, if you want the best letter to go, then the best way to do that might be to have a fuller discussion based on other information, which we could do at the next meeting, which is only 4 weeks away. So you might end up with a better outcome if you wait for a more informed discussion. But as John says, you can also take a two-track approach if it's important to send a letter now. That depends on what members' view of the timescale is.
Okay, all right, we'll take it to the vote then.
I was going to put an amendment.
All right, let's hear your amendment.
My amendment is that we do not decry from we've got 4 weeks to gather information, and the amendment would be that we take all those decisions in unison with the information and whatever, but in the interim we find out what the legal basis would be of us being asking to go into the ARC, because asking to go into the ARC and then being told you're not wanted might make us look really silly. So let's just find out what the legal basis of being involved.
I'm not sure what that amendment is, Councillor.
Well, the amendment is what I said, that we go away. I tried to say we need to get all the information based on what Councillor White said against why the decision was taken and everything else. And
so
then
you want to investigate first?
Well, do you want me to put the amendment or not? You've got a choice.
Well, if you could be, if you can.
What I said earlier, which is basically what Paul said, is get the information, bring it back in 4 weeks, and bang through with the proposals. But there's nothing wrong tonight to find out the answer to the first question about whether we had any position with the ARC. But do you think any other major decisions? I want all the facts in front of me before I go rushing off to do something. I want to be able to read them in a linear line.
Okay, all right. I think we've heard your amendment. Does anybody second the amendment? No, Paul? No.
That's it, hands.
Okay, so let's go to the vote. So the proposal on the table is that we write to the ARC and find out if we can partner them or be involved. Yeah. All right, so those in favour, please show.
I make that 4.
Those against?
1. Yeah, 1.
But abstaining?
I'm only abstaining because you never included the other part in it, which was Paul suggested.
All right, Robin.
3. That's 3 abstaining.
Okay. All right, so we're going to write to the ARC. I'd like to put another proposal on the table, which is Robin's, and that we do some investigating. If you're happy to put that forward, Robin, and I'll second that.
Yeah, I'll put that forward because that's what I think is a logical approach.
It is absolutely logical. So the proposal is that we write to the Shire Council and we find out why they removed themselves and do as much investigating as possible. And if Paul, you can bring that back to a report at our next planning meeting, if that's possible, please. Councillor Harvey?
I'm voting yes for that. I'm just put my hands up to vote.
Oh, I haven't called for the vote yet.
Oh,
Bit premature. Okay, so those in agreement, please show.
6.
Are you voting, Robin? Because I can't see your hand.
Yeah, it was in the other screen.
6 in favour.
Thank you. Those against?
None.
Abstaining?
1.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay. Action reports next. We've got Appendix A 5.1. Would anybody like to say anything on our first action list? No? Nothing? Okay. Thank you very much. 5 point. Who spoke?
I said all efficiently done, Lisa.
Oh, thank you. All right, 5.2, to receive and discuss a response from Mr. Essam. Would anybody like to talk on this one? Councillor Cole. Still muted.
May I ask the town clerk, please, to show Appendix B on the screen? Yeah, Mr. Essam has written to us to say that they're obviously concerned about covering over the cemetery because of the possible damage to the sign. They're looking into that. But he then goes on to say that there's no such permitted sign as new road layout. Well, if you look at the diagram there, new roundabout ahead in red, look alongside it to the right, new roundabout may be varied too, and a list of options, and one is a new road layout. So I'm afraid Mr. Essam isn't following his own rules. Perhaps we'd like to remind him of that, and please ask for the new road layout sign in red, as is laid out in diagram 7014. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Seconded. I had the same thought. Seconded.
Oh dear. Right. Okay. I can't see. Do you want to take the screen off, please, Paul?
Yeah. There we go.
Thank you very much.
Agreed. Of course. Agreed.
Yeah. All right. So we all agree. Yeah. Quick hands to show agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you very much. All right. Does anybody else want to speak on that? Carolyn. Yeah, Carolyn, and then Paul. Hold on, Paul. 1 minute. I call Carolyn.
Can I just make the point that I noticed on that sheet from Mr. Essam that he said that new signs should be in place for 6 months only, and the plethora of signs that exist around the town and elsewhere of new roundabout layouts or whatever it is go on for far longer than 6 months. So I think we could call them to count on that.
Definitely. Councillor Hyvans.
Yeah, I thought that what he was saying actually was there's no sign about change to roundabout. And therefore, and that was not in the list. And I thought that's what he meant, not the change road layout, because technically it's there, but there's nothing which says change roundabout layout.
No, there's not anything that says change.
And I just was assuming that's what he meant, and that's what the problem was. So there, anyway.
Okay. All right, thank you. Oh, Councillor Secretary.
I think we should also thank him for delivering the actual sign in the first place, which Councillor Cole so evidently asked for on numerous occasions, which has now been delivered, the large sign. So I mean, it's not all bad. The other element, we do need to check what's being done about the drainage around the roundabout, because there is leakage from the new cemetery site onto the roundabout, and there was some necessity to have some additional drainage works done. I've seen no works undertaken presently on that, which means that the water runs out the field and onto the roundabout. As you go into what would be the cemetery, if we ever completed that project, as you go back towards Tindrick, the water flows onto the road there, and there's no drainage there. It needs to be, the developer needs to actually get that put in. There was discussions there because I happened to be there when they were having to be helpful.
Okay.
So I think that we need to go back and ask him about those remedial works. I've seen none go in, and we've got the winter coming, and water on that roundabout with cold weather is not going to be a great one, is it?
No.
So I think we need to ask him some questions about that as well.
Okay.
There's a drain they haven't put in.
Okay. All right. We can leave Paul or Catherine to deal with that.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, 5.3, we've got a verbal report from Paul.
The report is to say the applications are almost submitted and will be this week.
Excellent. Does anybody have anything to ask Paul? No? No? All right, thank you for that, Paul. Short and sweet. Okay, item 6 is planning applications. If members agree, we could take number 6, land at Tindrick Road, from at the top. Members agree to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we've got land at Tindrick Road, variation of condition 10 of planning permission, is to amend to give another 10 additional homes. That's what it says on the agenda. Who would like to kick this off? Nobody. Okay. All right. So
Well, Councillor Try.
Councillor Try.
Just so you've got somebody to kick once it's off. So, as I said earlier, I don't particularly like changes to the designs, but as this is providing more smaller housing, I think it's a good idea and appropriate. So I'll be voting in favour of this.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll go straight to the vote then. So those in favour to support the application, please raise your hands.
I make that 7.
Those against?
Nobody.
Abstaining?
1.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you,
Hopefully
Emily.
see you again soon, and I will definitely follow up on those items with Theo separately.
Excellent. Yeah,
Okay,
no, that would be
you.
good. Thank you guys for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, councillors.
Good night.
Bye.
See ya. All right, thank you for that. So our next one is 32 Bradfield Avenue, erection of dwelling. We've got the one underneath it as well. It's the same property, but we'll take the first one first because they are separate applications. So does anybody want to speak on this? Carolyn.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I went personally to look at the site, and we met on Friday to discuss it. And the view is that it's very much an overdevelopment. It's just not enough room to put an extra dwelling into what is quite a decent sized garden, admittedly, but it's bang up against number 32. And it really would alter the street scene quite significantly. The space around it is quite open, particularly opposite, and the houses going southwards in towards the centre of town. It definitely would alter the street scene, in our view, adversely.
Okay. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I'd agree with the Buckingham Society on this. I think it's trying to do too much in a very small space of garden. So I don't think. I mean, maybe the second application has some merit, perhaps, but the first application to build a whole new house, no, I think it's definitely overdevelopment.
Okay, so we've got overdevelopment. Is there any other opinions on this? No. Okay. Oh, Robin?
I'm not going to vote on this clearly because it may come to committee.
Of course.
One thing I think we should be minded to the fact that this is almost a virgin site in Buckingham. In fact, when I say a virgin site, I don't know of any development there in my knowledge. And when I read the report, I didn't see anything about seeking an archaeological information on this site, and I didn't see a drainage type thing there, which I think you should discuss, because if you don't mention it in the report that you send back, then how can the councillors consider it somewhere else? So I think you should discuss that, because this is the top of the hill and the water always runs down the hill, not back up. So I would suggest that you consider whether that's an issue you want to talk about.
Okay. All right. Councillor Hirons.
Well, if we say it's overdevelopment and that's the reason for rejecting it, that's the reason for rejecting it. So
correct.
The drainage doesn't come into it if we're rejecting it anyway.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go to the vote. So those who are generally feeling to support this application, raise your hands. No. None. Those who oppose the application on overdevelopment.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And those abstaining.
1, 2. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the second application, the same property, single storey rear extension, 2-storey front extension, removal of porch and repositioning of the front door. Would anybody like to speak on this? Carolyn?
Thank you. I just say that we felt that this was actually an improvement, so no objections at all from the society.
Yeah, I think a few people have said that. Okay, all right, so hands up who are happy to support this application.
Well, no objection anyway.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Those who don't support the application?
None.
Abstaining?
1.
Thank you very much. Right, next one is 5 The Villas, Stratford Road, single-storey side extensions. Come back again. It's a bit of a boomerang, this one. Right, anybody like to kick this off? Martin, and then Anthony, and then John. Martin, I couldn't hear you. Is that just me?
No.
No, that's everyone.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Sounds really hissy, Martin.
It's like you're in a shower.
Well, is it computer people are the ones who get all these things wrong?
It's because they understand how to make the problems, Paul.
Yeah.
How's that now then?
Yeah.
Better.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. I was going to say that you've got to give these developers credit for perseverance on this. And, you know, it's the old design creepage again coming in. It's just, I would say that was overdevelopment in that space round the back. So I won't be voting for it. I'll be wanting it not to be approved.
You'll be opposing it. Yeah.
I will.
Anthony, and then John.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that this seems to me substantially exactly the same as the previous application that nobody liked. And I'm not very impressed with the double gable on the end, but that's perhaps a personal rather than a planning reason.
Okay, thank you. John?
Yeah, I object to it too on the basis of, for heaven's sake, is basically my response to this. Come on, please. Give up, will you?
Okay, so that your planning reasons. Yeah. Right, Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the other point about it, there's been no flood plan at all since before the July 2007 flood. They've called on before that, and you know, we're a long way down the line now. The whole of that area of Buckingham, in fact all of Buckingham, most of the villages were underwater, and without a flood risk plan, I don't see how we can support it either. So I'd add that to the overdevelopment.
Yeah. Okay, so hands up for those happy to support the application.
Support.
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 No.
No.
Thank you. Those who oppose the application.
7.
And those abstaining.
1.
Thank you very much. Okay, Buckingham. No, it's not Buckingham Colour Press. It's what's it called?
Howdens.
Howdens. That's it. Thank you. So they've already put the signs on there, so it's retrospective at this point, but we have to vote for it anyway. So those who support the signage, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Those who object to the signage, please show.
1.
And those abstaining.
1.
Thank you very much. Okay, and next one is land between 38 Morton Road and the old police station. Erection of 9 detached dwellings. Who would like to kick this one off? Martin, and then Carolyn.
Thank
and then
you.
John.
I don't like the way the parking has been done, or the pavements around into the little dead end area of the road. It restricts, it means cars are going to be parked on the curb basically. So they could do away with that and make it bigger. Because if they got 2 cars in the corner there, one of them's not going to be able to swing in. And if they have visitors or anything, then that's where they're going to park. So I don't think it's in their land. It's just part of the layout. So I think it could be better to take that pavement away around there. I'm worried about the whole width of the road area there, especially if they do have vehicles, one behind each other on the other side of the street, and then the refuge lorry could cause issues because probably they won't put 2 in behind each other there. And lastly, the drainage needs to be sorted for the runoff, especially to the wherever it is below the site. I think they need to put something in quite detailed of how that would happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's Mary McManus Drive is what's below the development. So any water runoff will go straight down to the bungalows.
It needs to be sorted before it goes ahead, because trying to do things retrospective in that area is going to be a nightmare, and then it will be sold on to private people, and that's not going to happen. You're going to need a collective together. So it needs to be buttoned down hard and fast before the site is developed.
Great. Okay, I think it's Carolyn, then John, and then Robin.
Yes, thanks. Well, I think all that Councillor Try was talking about indicates yet again, overdevelopment of a very tight, narrow space. We don't believe that the traffic officer can have looked at the site properly, because if you turn out of that entrance into Morton Road, immediately on your left there are parked cars on the road, and we know that number 38 is going to be pushed off his site, on which 2 cars usually sit. So that definitely needs to be triple checked. But we still think that this is overdevelopment. The amenity space allotted to each house is miserable, because most of what is green is behind a gabion, so it can't be actually used for any type of recreational amenity if you have children, essentially. The design we don't really like, but we're particularly keen that they should actually address the vision and design statement, which they haven't done in any shape or form. And also the crampedness next to number 38 to the south, if you like, but worse, the overlooking on Mary McManus Drive, which is going to be completely dwarfed by these houses. So we wouldn't object to a development per se, but surely less houses, more space, better parking arrangements.
Yeah, thank you for that, John.
I'm really picking up on what Councillor Troy said about the runoff water. And I'm not sure it's been fully dealt with. I'm looking briefly here now. It's quite a long report on the runoff. And I don't know, I'm not persuaded that it's been fully dealt with. I also note that the consultancy comments from the Buckingham and River Ousel Drainage Board, their comments are, you're advised that this site is outside the board's district. Well, it can't be outside the board's district because water runs off this area into the River Ouse. So I don't quite understand how we can be outside the drainage board that has our name in it. So I think we should definitely object to this, because I'm not persuaded that the issue of water, because I fear that the people who live in Mary McManus Drive, particularly at the top of it, are going to suddenly find, as they have found on the hill of the Summerhouse Hill and so on, that there are some really big runoff problems up there, or they may have been fixed by now. I don't know, but I think there's going to be serious problems with this being running off the Mary McManus Drive, because hitherto there were lots of trees there was lots of undergrowth, and the water would have seeped off slowly and through into the ground. All that's now more or less going to be covered with tarmac and roofs, and that's going to provide a huge problem. Where else is it going to go? So I'm not persuaded, and therefore I think we should object to this. And I agree with the Buckingham Society, with Carolyn, that it's overdevelopment. I think 9 properties on that piece of land is just too many.
Yeah. All right, Robin, and then Paul.
I just want to seek some clarity through you, Chair. This isn't in, for information for the meeting, this isn't in the neighbourhood plan, is it? So it's not a neighbourhood plan site. And also, I didn't see in the report, I'd like to be stood correctly, that there was any recognition of any archaeological stuff being undertaken in the first place. Those things I shan't be voting on it clearly because of the size of this, where it goes, but I just seek some clarity whether there's any information there, because I'm trying to learn from this discussion, not influence it. Would that be a fair view?
Catherine, do you want to answer that?
It counts as a windfall site, Councillor Sturchbury.
Thank you.
9 houses is less than the 10 that we permit on a windfall site in the neighbourhood plan. So it doesn't have to be a designated site for development.
And was I correct? There was nothing about archaeology in there?
There's nothing that I have seen yet, no. But you're right. On the fringe of town up there could well be something interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Paul.
I was going to mention about the archaeology, but the other thing is, if I could just put Councillor Harvey right about the drainage board. The drainage areas are based on actually how far up the elevation that you are above the water course. And it's nothing to do with how much water passes through it or anything like that. The drainage board is just basically does so many meters, or I think it was probably yards originally, above the mean water level of the Ouse. And if it's above that, it doesn't count as the water. It's all, if you're really keen, you can read the Medway letter of 1927. It's what actually defines what the drainage board is.
Can I propose you send that to Councillor Harvey?
Oh, Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to vote against this application on two of our policies, Buckingham Neighbourhood Policy DHE6, which Catherine kindly drew our attention to. That's good quality outdoor space. Karen also, of course, making much about that. Also on the VALP itself, policy S1, sustainable travel plans, transport, there is no travel plan. You might have young children, school children moving into this. They've got to get right across the other side of town, and obviously the best option for them is going to be taken there by car, not walking. Mr. Oliver, who lives at number 38, which is where this development is next to. It's not next to number 28, by the way, which the planning statement calls it the whole way through. Mr. Oliver has to get to his house wall to carry out maintenance to gutters, etc., etc., and he is asking for 1 metre of space between the closest development, between the garden they're proposing next door and his wall. So that would even further reduce the less than 10 square metres of garden for that house in particular. For those two policies, I'm opposed to this.
Okay, all right, we're going to go to the vote on this then. So those who are happy to support this application, please show.
Nobody.
No, those who are minded to oppose the application, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And those abstaining.
1.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've done Tinswick. Okay, so the rest are not for consultation, trees, but we'll go down them anyway because members might have some comments on them, and our comments are noted. Catherine answered this one earlier. The Shire Council does listen to our viewpoints on these. So number 7 is University of Buckingham Hunter Street campus. No, do you got anything to say on that? No. Okay. Next one is 2 Manor Gardens, partial crown reduction. Nope. Next one is Sound Martin Close, Stratford Road, the 12 Field Maples. I think everybody was kind of in agreement with this anyway, weren't they? On that, yeah. 15 Wharton Drive, crown reduction. Okay, yep. Open space fronting Bernardine's Way. Proposed crown lift. Anybody? Nope. Okay. Next one, land to rear 22 Nelson Street on Tinswick Road to fell and remove roots. Everybody okay? Yeah. Oh, no, 2 on there. So Martin and then Carolyn.
Was this not subject to another planning permission? I know it's nothing to do with this one, but didn't we have a planning permission for some walls, the bridge to be knocked down or something for them to get into the back garden or something? Is this in the same place?
I think you'll find that as the first in the approved list of decisions, Councillor Try.
Oh, right. Okay. So it was in the same place. Well, it is.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, Carolyn.
And I was just going to confirm that they need to approve this particular application in order to go through with the one that has been approved. I mean, presumably that is the logic of it. But we didn't like the application in the first place.
Robin?
Just to make comment that this is supposed to be, I believe, the week of the tree, isn't it? Celebrating the trees in Buckinghamshire. There's a big press release about that. I think irrespective of what we're doing with the work Catherine's been undertaking on the amount of trees removed, amended, altered, changed, lost, or whatever. As this is the week of the tree or whatever, it's a big national campaign this year, and Buckinghamshire Council's promoted themselves the week of the tree or National Week of Trees. I think we should perhaps look at whether we look at all these things in the round, because we have had a lot of change, irks and removals, and if we are in a position where we can comment, we discussed making a press release at some point in the future. I think the week of the National Week of Trees or whatever it is they're doing, it's the most appropriate time to make a comment about it. That press release, I think it went out. I think the town clerk will remind me what the actual wording of that press release was, if I've got the wording wrong, because I read it late at night, so I was doing lots of other things then, so reading lots of other things between it. But I do think that we should make our press release about trees this week if we're going to do it, because it's relevant this week. It won't be relevant next week.
Okay. All right, members.
I just think through the clown clerk what that actually said on that press release.
All right.
I haven't got it in front of me.
Can I just say, Chairman, this is actually item 13. We're jumping ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I did think it was further on down the list. It is on the agenda anyway, Robin.
It is. I apologise for that.
Okay.
I've done,
Well, we'll give you time to find it, okay?
The third meeting I've done today. So.
Oh, Louise, yeah?
It's National Tree Planting Week.
That's it. I know I was
tree planting. Thank you.
I knew,
That's
I knew
okay.
there was something. I
Okay.
wasn't going silly.
All right, number 7 is planning decisions. So if anybody's got anything to say on any of these, just raise your hand and let me know. No, the ones that have been refused, and it's a good win that they didn't get the phone box removed, so I'm very happy about that. And the 2 that are withdrawn, and then we got 3 that weren't consulted on trees. Okay, item 8.
Chairman, before you move off,
Yeah.
It's very rare we get a win, and as you were, the points you raised about the phone box were really very relevant, about it being the only place that a vulnerable person who's trying to get away to talk about being abused at home or whatever, it was the only phone box where they could go. Can I suggest that we do a press release around that, and maybe you as chairman goes down there and get photographed by it, because it's a big important issue, keeping that phone box in Buckingham, because it means that people who are in a in a relationship where they're being abused, especially with COVID carrying on and the amount of people who are going to come out of this, it's important that we've got that. It's a big win that they've understood our concerns.
It is a good win. Paul?
Yeah, Robin, we've already done that press release on the success of the phone box. We did that as soon as the information came through, and that was in the paper.
Great.
Cool.
They did print it then?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay. Right, so item 8, so we've got the Shire Council committee meetings. First, there wasn't any about applications. And the second one is Appendix D, the report from Councillor Cole. So, Mark, did you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, I think you've all seen the report. As you say, it's Appendix D there. I'm just going to respond to what Sheena said earlier about the 170 houses at Walnut Drive. Susan Kitchen, Senior Planning Officer at Buckinghamshire Council, kept on and on and on about the fact that if these 170 houses were refused, they'd be put somewhere else in the Vale of Aylesbury, and everyone would suffer. And she kept on about this, even to the extent that she spoke again on it just as the vote was about to be taken, which goes against all normal protocol. She said that the current 5-year housing need to 2023 needed 30,100 houses, and the current supply was 30,333. So they'd only just been met. And she said, we've looked at this site in far greater detail than the inspector, and we believe it's sustainable and any elements of harm are outweighed by its benefits towards our 5-year housing supply. Now, since I wrote this, the inspector's clerk, Susan St John Howe, has confirmed to Maids Morton Parish Council and Foskett meeting that he has not yet reached a decision on whether to include this site in the new VALP, in the emerging VALP, or not. And this was, councillors kept trying to impress this on officers, but they wouldn't have it. They said no, whatever decision the inspector reaches would only be very minor, wouldn't have any effect on this. At the moment, you've actually got the risk that the inspector could remove this from VALP, and Buckinghamshire Council's gone ahead and given permission for it to go ahead. The main reason we put this on tonight, on this second page of Appendix D, is about the proposed Section 106 mitigation. We only have till the end of this week to make any comment on the Section 106. And in fact, tonight I did email this to Catherine and to Lisa and to Paul. The draft 106 agreement has gone on the portal, and it's largely, as I've said here for you all, it's about the amount of monies being suggested, the monitoring of traffic flows through Foskett and at College Farm Junction, the A422, contribution of secondary school facilities at Buckingham School, and they have confirmed an hourly peak hours bus service to Buckingham Mondays to Fridays, except bank holidays. It doesn't say how long that would be for, and they don't actually define what hourly peak hours bus service is. I mean, it could be 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then not again until 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. They just don't say. That all needs sorting out. But what we generally opposed at the moment was having a pedestrian refuge above the old jail in Morton Road, because this council, as you know, is involved in negotiations to try and get a pedestrian crossing, not just a pedestrian refuge. So would we ask the developer to pay towards the crossing? The other thing is the pedestrian crossing, which they're suggesting at the Lower Wharf Junction with Stratford Road. And I know this committee has talked about this before, and we're saying it's too far down the hill. It needs to really be up where the Lollipop crossing is, or alternatively down the bottom of the hill from Page Hill Avenue across to Buckingham Athletic, one or the other. But where it's being suggested at the moment is a sort of no man's land, and there's no pavement on one side. So my proposal is that we are involved in the consultation process for the Section 106 mitigation as regards Buckingham, as we are a major stakeholder.
Yeah, and I'm happy to second that, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Robin, you had your hand up. Sorry.
Because it's not to do with that. Shall I speak after we've resolved that issue, Chairman? Because it's the background information on this site. It's nothing to do with what Mark said. I'm happy to support that now and then speak after.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We can do that. All right. So you got the motion in front of you. We'll do a vote. So those who agree.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.
Those who don't.
None.
Abstaining.
1.
Robin, are you not abstaining on this as well?
No, I can vote on this. I'm voting on this. Yeah.
Oh, you did vote. All right, sorry. I
did vote. Yeah, because I'm not.
Okay.
It's not an application. It's Section 106. And then I was going to speak on this period.
Okay.
Which I was going to wait until we'd done that vote before I did speak.
Yes. Yeah. So we've done the vote now. So can I just ask quickly, Mark, did you want to come back in on?
As we've approved this request, Paul, Town Clerk, did indicate that we have executive powers as a committee to put this forward to Buckinghamshire Council. This committee is representing Buckingham.
So move.
So we don't need to go back on that. And if the other thing, if perhaps the committee would if I liaise with Catherine on exactly how we work. over the next couple of days. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you for that, Mark. All right, Robin, background information.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Why all this application was determining going to committee, there was correspondence which town clerk had and Catherine had, about the way that they determined this to go to the strategic planning committee and not to the local area planning committee. It deemed that it was the task and finish group of the strategic task and finish group that came up with these criteria, which were amendable. So it didn't go to the local area committee. It went to the strategic planning committee. I carried on with that correspondence because I didn't agree with that, because the Constitution stated that up to 400 properties would go to strategic and others would go to the local area planning committee. That conversation continued, Chairman, and just to wind it forward, it was told me that the monitor officer considered the criteria set forth, but this was a strategic site, and they stated those elements which were premised, as Councillor Cole so strongly represented earlier, about the Vale plan and about the numbers being reasons why it was strategic, and that was their reason for doing it. But this just rather raised a very difficult question for all of us, because I think that I'd like that to be circulated to members to discuss, because it gives the influence in that correspondence that when I asked them whether this set a precedent, and I think it does set a precedent in the way that these types of large developments may be considered in the future. My inference from the correspondence, which I think is that these larger sites, which would probably mean the two other sites, which are like the Mays Morton Road site and the Osier Way site, which we know about, which are in conflict with the local plan, may go to strategic development, may not go to the area planning committee. Now, looking at the decision of the area of the strategic planning committee, which was hung, and the chairman went with what he said was protocol and went with the officer's report. Now, we have, as a town council here, a large stake in the ground with those two developments, because they are in their very nature against the neighbourhood plan, though in the emerging rail plan. So I think we need to have a discussion at some point how we go forward, because this is our community we're talking about, and if a precedent has been set and these decisions are going to be taken by people who may have all the knowledge in the world about planning because they've experienced doing planning committees, but they don't share the local empathy for the way this community, then that's going to be quite difficult to swallow if large applications for Buckingham are going to be decided elsewhere. And I think we should have a discussion about that. And I am concerned about it, so much so. I think I did copy out of courtesy both you, the deputy chairman, and the chairman into that correspondence. Out of courtesy, they felt that they needed to know the conversations that I was having.
So if we can wind this up, you'd like all members of the committee to have the conversations that you've had around the application going to strategic. Through you, Chairman, so that we can form a conversation around this properly. Because if it means that, as I feel, that last correspondence says this is a precedent, that means that there's a concern there. There's a real concern there, but I don't want to prejudice your views. I want you to take your views based upon the that's fine.
Correspondence. I think that's the right way.
Paul can do that. Thank you. John.
Just building on what Robin's been saying there, I mean, I've also submitted a freedom of information inquiry to establish why there was a difference, it appears, with a very comparable planning application in South Bucks that didn't go to the Strategic Sites Committee, but did go to the local committee, and one obviously in Maids Morton that went to the Strategic Sites Committee. Now, I'd like to investigate the reasons as to why that is the case. You know, was a protocol applied in one case and not the other? Did they simply invent a protocol, or is there actually no protocol at all? So I'd like to see what evidence comes back, and obviously once I get it, I'll bring it back to this committee, but it will be openly available because it's an FOI response in any case. But what I would say is that this is a matter of great concern, because although there were, you know, Charlie Clare was there representing not exactly his ward, but the ward not far away. All the other councillors came from some distance away. And the chairman himself comes, I think, from Aston Clinton. So the issue why this is political, and that's political with probably a small p, is that means, as Robin's highlighting really, is that key decisions like this that are very controversial, then the local councillors are not only not getting a shout, but more importantly, they're not being put into position of having to make a decision. Because it's all very comfortable for the local councillors who are shire councillors to, in a sense, opt out of actually making the hard decision, because I'm sure the local electorate would wish to hold them to account when they get the next chance, had they had the opportunity to make a decision one way or the other. So this is a matter of great concern that we really must resolve and must bottom out, and we simply can't have officers at the Shire Council interpreting their versions of the Constitution without there being some greater clarity around this. And I think there may even be a case eventually of taking this to the local government ombudsman potentially.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thoughts. That was it done so that the local members didn't have to make a decision on it. I read that into it a bit. But I'm going to move on because it is 20 to 9 already. So
just before you move on, Chairman, I'll try and go through tonight and send, because I've got all the correspondence, but I asked some of those questions that Councillor Harvey alluded to over the application in South Bucks, and I do believe it was probably Councillor Cole who identified that in the first place, to give credit where this had actually took place, and the answers came back. I think that it will be interesting for us to do a proper analysis of this, because it's about.
You'll check your emails. You'll check what you've got.
Check
and send
tonight.
it on. Thank you for that, Robin. Yeah, we can bring it back to our next meeting, and hopefully, well, I don't know, what's the kind of lead time for freedom of information? Does anybody know?
21 days.
4 weeks. Okay, so it might come back in time for our next meeting to have a discussion on it. Okay.
Not
good.
Judging by my experience.
No. Okay, so now we've got to discuss who we want to call in our applications. And it might be useful if you open up your Appendix E to see who has been helpful and who hasn't been helpful, which is all of them practically.
Chairman, you've skipped item 9.
Did I?
Yep. Buckinghamshire Council members in my motion.
What have you got there?
You skipped straight to 9.3, Councillor. You've missed 9.1 and 9.2.
Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. Okay, so roll that back. So 9.1, receive news from the Shire Councils, new documents and other information. So we've only got Robin here.
I'll just tell you that I've got a motion going to council, which should go live this week. That motion is seeking the council to undertake a business case to look at going back into providing social housing, affordable housing from the council. The reason I've done it now is because before they start amalgamating all their assets and that in the new council and where they're going to do in lands and stuff, it should be part of the discussion. How that progresses will be entirely up to the support of my local shire councillors, won't it? But it's going to be placed on the motion. It went in good time, and hopefully we'll get some signal of whether they want to be a housing provider again or whether they're going to carry on the status quo. That's enough for me.
Thank you. All right, so 9.2, to receive, discuss and agree a motion from Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be extremely brief. I think all of us are getting increasingly frustrated by the way that we're not being listened to. We're being treated as amateurs. I've drafted this motion as I indicated I would at the last meeting. We're a planning consultant. We're a stakeholder. We ensure that all applications which come before the council meet national and local planning policies, guidelines and standards. We bring local knowledge, expertise. We have professional planning clerk, councillors who are experienced in planning matters, and input from the Buckingham Society, of course. And accordingly, all our decisions are carefully considered. We're meeting this reluctance now of Shire members to call in applications on our behalf. A month ago, we had one who refused to call the application in because it said it had no planning reasons. Officers then refused that plan on planning reasons. So again, Shire councillors are predetermining what we've decided we want to object to. So my application is very simple. I propose we ask Buckinghamshire Council to reconsider its new planning applications policy, which we believe as it currently stands is undemocratic and wrong.
Happy to second that, definitely. Would anybody like to speak on this before we go to the vote? Robin?
Having objected to the policy all along, I'm quite happy to support this. Having questioned it all along, having questioned it on constitutional grounds, having written to the Cabinet about this, taking my advice from this committee and next council, clearly I'm happy to support this because it cannot be right that we're ignored, and it cannot be right that predetermination of our view can be taken by myself as a Shire councillor refusing to take an application to committee for you, thereby changing the view. That cannot be right.
Thank you. All right, we'll move straight to the vote then. So those in support of the motion, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Thank you. Is that unanimous?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so now we go on to what Shire Council we want to call in what applications. So if you want to open up Appendix E, you'll see who has and who hasn't done anything for us. Right, Catherine, what applications are we calling? Are we asking to be called in?
32 Bradfield Avenue, a new house.
Okay, who do we want to call that one in? Let's see. Oh, Charlie's done none.
Councillor Clare hasn't replied to the last request yet.
Right. Okay, we know Simon Cole doesn't do anything.
Madam Chairman, in light of our motion that's just been passed, I suggest we do ask Councillor Cole. Let him know of the motion.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to ask, well, both Charlie and Simon to see if they'll help out. Robin?
Look, I don't want anyone to get broken-hearted over this, but and I don't want anyone to have any false hopes over this. That we've been carrying on with this policy for a long time, and there's enough signals in there, whatever. The one which I think I would be willing to, if nobody else takes it forward on the, is because I think it's the one opposite the adjacent to the police station on the Mays Morton Road. I think out of all of them tonight you've discussed, that's the one which I think is most important that it gets discussed at committee because of the very variance that has on the town. So on that basis, with Catherine's support, if we get no whatever, let's take it as read that if there's a refusal to take any of them on, I'll take that one on because it's important that it's discussed very much on the grounds that Councillor Cole raised, the Buckingham Society raised and other people raised
Mm.
about it's an important application.
Yeah.
So I'll take that on.
All right, thank you for that. Excellent. All right, one down.
The villas.
I would wonder about Warren for the villas because he's already been on the case previously.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that he continues with it. Is happy? Yeah. Yeah. I see lots of nodding.
Yeah, and then there is just the police station one.
That was the one I thought.
Robin.
So
we'll do that.
That's the others we had no objections, so that's fine.
But I will need some help coming up with what I've got to do with that, Catherine. So that at least because we got. I'm not an MP, so I can't just write in and say I object because I saw one application.
No, that's fine, Robin.
I need to have something a bit more. They won't give me the same courtesy as they did him.
All right, we're going to ask Charlie and Simon to do the 32 application. Yeah. We'll see if any response comes back.
Chairman, does that not rather cancel itself out though? The fact we've opposed the first but agreed the second.
No, they're separate applications. So we haven't. If they want to go ahead and have their extension on the back of the house, not a problem. It's putting an extra house in the garden that we had a problem with.
Yeah.
It's an either or, but I can see what you're saying now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it'll save him having to move the porch from the side of the house if he's not having another house in the way, isn't it?
Mm. Okay.
Right, I'll do my best with those.
Yeah.
Remind Councillor Clare that it would be courteous to at least acknowledge.
Yeah.
The other ones that we had last time, Councillor Mordew's been talking to the officer.
Okay.
And they're discussing modifications and amendments, so that might not actually need to go to committee, sort out our problems.
Oh. All right,
So
good.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right, brilliant. Thank you for that, Catherine.
But I'll keep that list updated as best I can so that you can always ask, and I'll pop it in the email to you if you want to just update yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Just through you, Chairman, is there a timeline, Catherine, where we've got to get
You've got 28 days from the day you got the email to say that application was around. And that was relatively recent, so you've probably got another 3 weeks on that. And then you've got 7 days to provide the business manager with planning reasons.
So
that's what Catherine will help with.
We need to tidy that up before Christmas, then, really, don't we?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, before Christmas.
What I'll do, I'll condense my report into the reasons, the planning reasons for calling it in. And
just that's too big an application not to go to committee.
Yeah, no, Catherine said she'll help you with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody want to discuss Appendix E and your disgust for our Shire councillors not helping? Carolyn.
Well, am I right in saying that the one on the house on Station Terrace, and sorry, I haven't got Appendix E in front of me, has it not gone to the inspectorate as an appeal?
Station House?
Yes.
Station House has, yes, an appeal has been lodged against non-determination.
Right.
And we have, we can take it to next meeting because we've got until the 30th of December to send anything extra to the inspector if we want to.
Oh, great. Thanks.
But I think we probably went slightly over an A4 page of what we didn't like about it in the first place. And he'll get that in the paperwork anyway. The statement of case has gone onto the website today, but it's 38 pages and I haven't read it yet.
Oh gosh. Okay. Right, postponed from last meeting to receive for information Milton Keynes press release on their response to the white paper. You've all read it, I take it?
From memory, it's very good.
Mark?
I just guess I noted. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, item 11 to receive response from MP Greg Smith. Appendix G.
I think noted.
Noted.
Yeah. Robin wants to come in and say something?
I think he's obviously entered the House of Commons because he's managed to draft us a letter that doesn't give us any definites but offers us a lot of charity. So he's obviously now a fully fledged member of Parliament reading the letter, because I couldn't determine from that letter at what point he was going to cut into this argument and discussion or not. But it was a very good letter, very professionally written, but it didn't tell me what I wanted it to say, that he got the that he was going to take it by the bull and the horns and run with the topic. It didn't give me that influence, which was a disappointment, but it was very well written.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
I disagree. He finishes off the letter. I'll continue to campaign to keep the character of Buckinghamshire. Will press for brownfield sites to be used first. That is a statement of intent for which we should be very grateful. Thank you.
Okay. And also, he did relay to the Minister the centralised planning system that he's got concerns. So he has spoken to somebody, Robin, for sure.
But I was hoping that he was going to be more chastising against the white paper and the overburden pressures that it's going to do. And he didn't
he's
say
a
that.
politician. No,
I said what I said in my premise. It was a very good letter because it was wrote by a politician. What I was saying is that if you'd have got a letter from me, it wouldn't have been so well written, but you'd have definitely know what I was going to do or not.
Right.
I do agree that he did say he was going to do all those things. Councillor Cole's quite right, but the brownfield sites won't be the problem. It's the rest of Buckinghamshire under concrete will be the problem.
Thank you. Right, item 12. We've got the draft Milton Keynes planning obligations. Would anybody like to talk on this? What, John?
Yeah, because obviously this has now come back for the third time. And basically it's showing in the documentation how easy Milton Keynes Council finds it to work with their parish councils and town councils on consulting on section 106. So what I would propose is that we send a copy of the relevant paragraphs to the Buckinghamshire Council and say, how about it? They can do it in Milton Keynes, and surely you can do even better here in Buckinghamshire.
Yeah. Robin?
I taking on board what Councillor Harvey said, I think he makes a very sound point in the sense that it seems to be quite easy for Milton Keynes to do that. But then they were a new authority compared to Buckinghamshire County Council. Now they're an older authority compared to Buckinghamshire County Council. Now Buckinghamshire Council's the new authority in Buckinghamshire. So I think this is something that we need to, might be a question to Cabinet, because there's some detail in this that we could write to them, and if we do a question to Cabinet which is around the detail within that, we'll get a detailed response about their answers, and it'll be in the public domain whether they wish to take those things up. If we just write to them, it'll be a private letter between us and it'll appear in our minutes. But I think it would force the issue just a little bit more. I haven't drafted a question to Cabinet at this point. I'm working on that, but I'd be willing to take this, work with those who are interested to do so. I'm getting an appropriate question to Cabinet around this based on the detail within the report. And I've got to do that in the next 2 to 3 days if I'm going to use it.
What do members think? A question to Cabinet?
Yeah, agree.
Yep.
I'll need some help actually drafting that, because it shouldn't be my prejudices throughout, should it?
I can provide you with the paragraphs that you need to be able to quote. It is 2.3 and 2.10.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul and then Mark.
Sorry, can I just clarify? Are we encouraging Robin to ask a question as a Buckinghamshire councillor to Cabinet, or is the town council submitting a written question to Cabinet?
I think the former.
You can't actually submit a written question to Cabinet, Paul. That you can't do that. You can,
so town council can't.
You can go to us. You can go to the planning, the the meeting, which will be henceforth in January, you could go to the committee which deals with planning, which has only just met, the public meeting. You could do it there. But if you want to get an answer, it needs to go through me to cabinet. You can't do it, but you can go. You don't. If the council wants to do it, it'll have to wait for the next environment and planning committee, which will be in January.
Yeah, so Robin can't speak on behalf of the council.
No, but I can ask a question.
You can ask a question as a Buckinghamshire councillor.
Yeah, but it will be the question that what you're going to ask, which will be part of your, the correspondence. I could do that firstly, try and get a quicker answer. It's entirely up to the council members how they want to play this. I could do it anyway. But
what are your concerns on that, Paul? What's your concerns?
I'm just trying to get clarity on what we're doing. That's all.
I think we're just asking our ward councillor to represent council's views.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable, Paul. We do it on any other matter that we wanted.
I know I happen to be the only opposition councillor and it's quite on the council. Well, that's because that's the public's choice, isn't it? Maybe
so members agree that we want Robin to ask a question on our behalf. Yeah. Thumbs up. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
And I'll work with Catherine and Paul, and if John can send me something over what he's thinking, so that I can incorporate a view. I don't want to just make it my view. I want to make
You've already said. Yeah. No, that's fair. Thank you. Thank you for offering. Appreciate that. Okay. So if we are finished with item 12, so 13 is a tree felling. And thank you, Catherine, for putting this list together. Appendix H. Would anybody like to speak on the trees that we've had removed? Carolyn.
Yes, well, echo thanks to Catherine for putting together this list, which is really revealing. And one thing that caught my eye is replacement trees. They sometimes get specified, but is there any monitoring of whether they actually happen? And two that I picked up was land at Chandos Road, which I imagine is the block of flats opposite, I can't remember what it's called now, but you know where I mean.
Midsummer Court, I believe.
Midsummer Court. Due to be replaced by ash-leafed maple. I mean, did that ever happen? Has any of us any clue? Can it be followed up? And then the next one was a birch replacement to be discussed with residents at Orchard Dean. And again, it sounds a great idea, but whether they happened or not, I'm not sure. Perhaps they did. But on a general point, I think we should be asking for replacement trees wherever there is felling. And can this be part of policy within the Environment Committee and wherever it is best discussed and debated?
Yeah, Catherine.
Well, the Orchard Dean one was a single residence affected, and they had agreed with the residents that they did want another tree, but the one that had to go.
Sure, I understand that.
What concerns me particularly about protected trees, of course, is that a replacement tree is not part of the protection order.
Yeah.
And so can be felled willy-nilly without permission. I mean, obviously, if you've got a diseased tree, you can't put a like for like in because it'll just go the same way.
Yeah.
And of course, nobody seems to care about putting a mature tree in because it's very, very expensive.
Yeah, you know, I see all of that, but it doesn't even have to be in the same spot. A replacement tree somewhere should be part of the climate change debate, apart from anything else.
But they are going for the lighter weight trees where they are specifying.
Yeah.
I mean, the Norway maples from Page Hill are going to be replaced by silver birches. And it's not a dense tree, a silver birch. The maples were a good dense tree. Yes, they made a lot of leaves in the autumn, but you know, it's a different look to an avenue altogether if you've got something with big solid leaves on, to things that are a delicate tree with spindly leaves on. So
I think it's a good point that you made, Carolyn, that can we have it added that any removal, that there's another tree replaced, not necessarily in that same position, but somewhere, because then it's offsetting that. Mark, and then Robin, and then John.
Interested Catherine mentioning about silver birches, because a month ago I had a conversation with Neil Passmore and he said they're no longer planting silver birches because they keep failing. We've had 3 up here on Page Hill which had to be replanted and they all died within 3 months of being planted. He said they're tending not to, that they're using other types of tree rather than silver birch now, certainly up here at Page Hill.
Interesting. Okay. Right, Robin, then John.
Let's come back now. Yeah. Well, firstly, the realities of this are that we're probably losing a lot of our mature trees. Though I totally agree that we should encourage them to plant trees to replace the ones that are lost. You know, you really need to plant 3 to 4 trees to guarantee that one survives. So, you know, because Mark ever so eloquently put that they're not actually surviving. The trees aren't surviving when they're put in the wrong place with the wrong soil type and whatever. Well, that's another question why they're taking them out in the first place, because we are in climate change situation now. When those trees were planted at Page Hill, we were in much more traditional weather types, and they probably got a better amount of water, to be frankly honest. So we know that the summers are quite dry, the autumns are quite dry, and the spring's quite dry. And we plant, so they really don't get going like they once did. So maybe we need to think about any trees that planted in Buckingham have to have a proper management plan in the early years to ensure that they actually survive. Because if trees don't last very well without water, and we've had a lot of trees on Lace Hill which have been replaced once or twice now on that development after dying again because they're not maintained. So I think there's no point in planting trees if they don't have a management plan with them, and there should be more than one to replace a substantial tree, because it's just wrong. And we should be doing something about this, as I said earlier, some press release around this to draw people's attention to this as it's National Tree Planting Week. Louise pointed out to me eventually that I knew it was a National Something Tree Week.
Okay.
But,
can we move?
I think that's something that we need to consider, to draw people's attention to this, because it's about all these trees we're losing. Buckingham's landscape's changing very quickly.
We can. Yeah. No, great. Right, John wanted to say something, and then we'll move on.
I mean, I think we have very, very limited powers here, I think is one of the problems. And it was seen from the list that Catherine has compiled, is that almost all the applications to cut down trees are approved.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether we need to be thinking now about what policy we can put in the revamp of the neighbourhood plan that might seek to address this in some way. So what I'd like to propose is that we ask the town clerk, or Catherine, or versions thereof, as it were, to do some digging around to see whether any other neighbourhood plans mention tree felling, and whether any have been successful in actually stopping tree felling in any great proportions. I think we need to have some sort of policy on this, and that needs to be given some sort of force within our neighbourhood plan. That would be my proposal.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, because I think it goes along with what Carolyn was saying. We need something somewhere to do with trees. Paul?
Yeah. You make it sound very black and white. Now, you know where I live, on the top of a hill. When I came here, I could see Buckingham. Now I can't, and bit by bit, the church is disappearing because of the number of trees that there are and the way they're growing up. So let's not get too emotional about the number of trees we're losing, because to me, Buckingham's getting greener and greener.
I disagree with you. I think we do need to be interested.
I was going to say, come up to my bedroom and have a look.
Ooh, that'll be a no. But
sorry, but that's the way I said that points over the town.
Only if there's a whole group of us go together, that's fine.
And Mrs. Hirons is also present. Yes,
definitely. Yeah.
I think he needs to be accompanied.
Okay. All right. So we're on to enforcement now. Any breaches?
Hang on, sorry, I made a proposal. I did make a proposal that we ask the town clerk
and it was seconded.
And Catherine to do some investigations.
Yeah, I seconded it. So yeah. So those who agree with the motion, please show.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Those who are against?
None.
Abstaining?
I just asked whether we could do a press release around this issue. Because I think
can we get onto press releases at the? Oh no, it's not on. You're right to ask. It can happen anywhere on the agenda now, can't it?
Exactly.
So press release. Want to do a press release?
I think
members
carefully craft a press release around the importance of it, because it is, as Louise pointed out, the National Tree Planting Week, and
members happy to do a press release.
Yeah,
planting more trees and our general concern around the issue.
Yeah, definitely. Enforcement. Any new breaches? Anybody? John?
Oh, hang on. I'm not sure it comes under this group or the environment group, but the pathway that goes past the Bourton Mill leisure centre, gym and so on, the pathway is already very narrow.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of vegetation on the wall. That means you have to walk in the road in order to actually go down that side of the road. And I've been asking them several times now to get this cut back. I don't know whether it's one of the delegated powers, but can we please just cut back all that vegetation so at least one person can walk down that path at a time? Because right now it's not possible.
So whose wall is it on? Is it the gym?
Yeah, I presume it's owned by Bourton Mill. Yeah.
Right. In that case, Louise, I think a hedge letter coming on.
I think they've had 2 already. I'll look into it.
Yeah, I've certainly signed one. It might be at the stage where we have to send it off to Buckinghamshire Council for legal enforcement, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are ignoring it, and it's a real hazard. Real hazard.
Well, yes, because of the bend as well, isn't there?
Yeah. Because I used to struggle around there when I had to walk the dogs. There'd always be one dog in the road, getting myself and one dog by the wall, and then the other one had to walk in the road. There was no way. Right, Anthony, Paul, and then Robin, but try and wrap it up as quick as possible.
Yeah, just quickly on the point that Councillor Harvey made, I'm not exactly sure where he means, because I think the land that's owned by the gym then leads on to the person who used to own the gym and has now got a house there, and in fact his garden runs all the way down, and so perhaps it's his problem rather than the gym's, and we might just need to check that out.
I think it's the gym's wall, to be honest, mostly. But you're right. We need to check it out.
Yeah. Thanks, Anthony. Okay, Paul?
Yeah, the other day I was walking along Chandos Road, basically opposite the dark alley. And down on the other side, 2 of the houses are being joined. Now, I don't recollect ever seeing that as a planning application.
Did you happen to see the number?
No, I didn't. I was just thinking it, and it gets very strange, the numbering up the end of Chandos Road. But it was just the ordinary sort of, standard detached and go together. but two of them, that's not they were going over the garage and going into the next one.
Oh.
No, I think you need to produce me the number for that, because it's impossible to just gauge with Chandos Road. It goes into the 30s and then it goes back into the 20s again.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
I know that's the problem.
So next time you're out with Dan, would you care to look at the house number and I'll have a look into it? I don't remember anything down there. Number 24's had an immense amount of things done to it, but I don't think you mean as far as that.
No.
Yeah, if you could take a photograph on your phone as well, Paul,
Yeah.
that would be useful.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thanks for raising that, because I've not seen anything to do with that either. All right, Robin?
Yeah, just to say that there has been some enforcement going on. I've raised two issues myself, one to do with possible removal of hedgerows in the curtilage of Buckingham, and one to do with the concerns of the Resident Association at Lacehill to do with the balancing ponds and the conditions not being met. Now, so those things are things that are being raised. And to be fair, they are turning back at me quicker than they were 6 months ago in making a case. So it's not a case of keep writing. They do seem to be coming back at you and raising an enforcement case a bit quicker. So I'm always criticising people. So when things are getting a little bit better, I think you have to be fair and say they are getting a little bit better when it comes to the action on enforcement.
Do you have anything to report on that, Robin? We're talking about reporting breaches.
Just to tell you that I just did that. I've reported one on the balancing ponds and one on the other, one to do with hedges. That's what I said. And report that I've raised two cases myself. So
we don't need to do it here. You've done it already.
You don't need to do it, but just to let you know there are things being done.
Thank you. Yeah, that's useful. Matters to report. Now, there was an email from a councillor saying about land grabbing up at Page Hill. Do you want to explain a little bit more, Catherine?
I really need actual addresses.
Yeah, that wasn't provided.
But I mean, we've had a certain amount of success with other addresses that we've sent down to Aylesbury. But I mean, I can't just say up near Holloway Spinney.
Yeah,
quite a lot of houses.
But was there two houses or more that the councillor pointed out?
I think just two, but she wasn't terribly clear about it.
Yeah.
So if you, if as she, it was to you, copied to me, if you would like to go back to her and say, would you like to actually, like she may have a phone that she can take photos on as well. We did have a go at one up there, and I think that was one of those that sank without trace when enforcement were not being terribly efficient. But they do react quicker if you send them a picture.
Yeah, all right, we'll get, I did reply to the councillor and ask for some more information, but we'll, what I'll do is I'll send the information around to all members so that you know what properties the other councillors pointed out. But just to know that there's a bit of land grabbing going on up at Page Hill. Robin?
I haven't seen the correspondence, Chairman. Is it at the, obviously this land is a grab at the back of the properties, not at the front of the properties. Is there some way we can get access?
I believe one of them is a side piece.
One was.
Okay, it's just that, you know, it's great, but we need, as you said, Chairman, we'll see the correspondence and see the you know, the ownership of land in these estates that up there might be interesting.
If it's a question of your fence moving quietly in the night.
Yeah,
I think that I could tell you a great story about fences moving in the night.
We have to check in any case, because sometimes it's a legitimate sale. I know there was a period when a lot of the odd bits and pieces of mown verge in Badgers were being offered to the nearest house, because my mother got offered hers. It was running alongside a public path. They said she's no way that she's going to litter pick and mow and everything a piece of grass like that at her age. But I know of several other places in Badgers where bits of land were offered to landholders nearby to extend.
Okay, so we definitely need addresses off her. And
we do need a proper address, and if you can do a photograph, that would be brilliant. If not, I will go up and do the photograph myself when I've got the address.
Right, Mark, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I circulated a photograph to the committee of the traffic bollard at the entrance to Well Street. I took it on Saturday. We raised this in January and again in February because it's in the conservation area. It's a temporary massive bollard, and Highways told us it was going to be replaced with a normal, acceptable bollard immediately. Well, that was in February and we're still waiting. Could we ask if this could be done before Christmas? So just make the conservation area look a little bit less scruffy.
We can ask.
I'll give it a go.
They might even stick a red ribbon on top. You never know.
Small Santa Claus. Climbing up it.
All right, is there any other matters to report from anybody? No? All right, fabulous. Okay, I don't have any chairman's items. So date of next meeting is the 21st of December and it will be on Zoom. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Sheena. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Louise, very much for your time and trouble.
If I don't see any of the other you members before Christmas, because